Hello and welcome to the Sports Card Lessons Podcast with me, your host, Ken Cairns. Welcome to the pilot episode, Season 1, Episode 1. This is where it all starts. Today's pod is simply called Introductions. On the first episode, I'm just going to introduce myself, give you my background, who I am, where I'm from, and how I ended up here doing a sports card podcast. Going back to my career, I retired in 2020 after teaching computer repair, A+ certification, and Java programming for 28 years in a maximum security prison. Yes, you heard that correctly. I taught inmates in a maximum security prison. Rewarding? Yes. Interesting? Very interesting. Never a dull moment in the prison. I've also owned and operated a computer business for the last 20 years, which I still call my day job. I, like most people in the hobby, have been collecting most of my life. I'm what you would call a chronic collector. Started collecting hockey cards at a very young age. My family was from Canada. I was the firstborn here in the United States. We were a big hockey family. So there was a lot of packs of cards bought, ripped open, more for the gum, I think, than the cards themselves. And Lord knows where all those cards ended up. In the late 80s, I started collecting football. In the early 90s, I started collecting hockey again. I collected Hess trucks. In 94, Disney was coming out with their first animated movie. I started collecting Toy Story toys. In 96, it was Beanie Babies. In 99, it was Pokemon. So if you haven't figured out the pattern by now, I'll break it down. 80s and 90s football, 80s football, 90s hockey was all junk wax. I still have them. It's still junk. I still have all the Toy Story toys, which have held a lot of value, especially the original Thinkway toys before Mattel took over. But I still own all those, and hopefully someday they'll pop. The Hess trucks, gone, sold those. Beanie Babies, I still have them all, from the retired all the way up to Princess Di. And at the time, Pokemon was a bust too. With a young family, I figured it was time to stop wasting money. I've always had the collector mind and the passion, but just not the right products. So in the early 2000s, I decided to start putting my money in solid, safe investments with great returns. Smart decision of my young life. So we'll fast forward now to 2019. I'm looking forward to retirement and deciding what I'm going to do. I really had no hobbies. The only hobby I had was I'd go to the casino here in Connecticut once a month. So I decided, you know what, I needed a different hobby. A lot of people I knew played golf, and I said, hey, I'm going to give that a try. So my first year of golf probably went about as good as my early days of collecting. But you know what? I was having fun, and I stuck with it. So the following year, I was invited to play golf on a weekly basis with somebody I used to work with. I ran into him, told him I started playing golf, and he said, hey, come play. We got a group. We need a fourth. I said, sure, I'll come play. So one day after golf, one of the guys, who was there was always talking about this huge vintage baseball collection he had and the values of all these different cards. And I just asked him about, how he knew, what he was doing, what he was doing in the hobby. And even though he had all these vintage cards, his prized possession and what he was really most interested in at this time was wax, that he was buying cases of wax and just putting them away. Said he had these boxes of cards going back to 2012. And then he started telling me some of these boxes are worth like $5,000-$6,000. I'm like, come on, how could that be? I mean, these cards cost, $30, $40, $50 a box. And he said, yeah, it just depends on, who's in the box. So I asked him, what boxes are you currently buying now? There's my, my collector mind saying, hey, maybe I'll buy some boxes and put them in my closet. So at the time he was buying these baseball, these Target Megas. And full disclosure, I've never watched a professional baseball game in my life. Never. as a kid, I played baseball, but when I got older, I had no interest in watching baseball. I had no idea who was who and who, what any players are. There were a handful of pocket players I knew, but for the most part, I had no idea anything, baseball. So of course, that was also the beginning of the pandemic. We're all stuck in the house, and I said, you know what? Maybe this might not be such a bad idea if I you know, when you forward looking when you collect a sport like football. I'm a Chiefs fan, so you know I want to collect every single chief card, all the players on the team. And even though those cards are not going to pay off, but there's just something about having them all. So I thought, hey, maybe with baseball, if I didn't know who anybody was, maybe this might be better, if I'm just looking for certain people and just boxing everybody else up, so that year, I started buying, and you couldn't find any of these boxes at Target. During the pandemic, they stopped putting things on the shelves, so it was all through eBay and online and marketplace. And he gave me a few tips. On eBay, everybody was selling those boxes at like $40, but if you went on marketplace locally, people who had them, they would sell them for $30-$35. So I I jumped in both feet. I started buying 10 boxes at a time, and we started opening them up, getting all the looking for the refractors, looking for the autographs, looking for the number, the colored cards, all those things, and all the first Bowmans. Literally, I just asked him, what do I do? He said, just keep sleeving them, top loading them, and putting them away. We won't know if any of those players are going to be worth anything for another few years. So I said, okay, fine. I kind of started going down the rabbit hole. I was really excited when I found out that there were jumbo hobby boxes that contained 5 autos. I'm like, here's a home run. It was like a winning lottery ticket. I'm like, yes, please give me a couple more of those, because of course it was just the chase to open a box. I had no idea the autographs, who I was getting. It was just to get them, and hopefully somebody was going to pay off down the road. Eventually I figured out, and through conversation, that it was like every other hobby box. You get 1 or 2 really good players, and everybody else is a pitcher, and most pitchers aren't really worth anything in those boxes. But hey, I boxed them all up. So that year I was ripping wax from May to August, sleeving, top loading, everything, boxing them all up and putting them away in the closet. So 2021, I was ready when it came around, the spring of 2021, and I did nothing with cards. I only did that baseball, because really that's all I kind of knew. And now, as part of the industry, I really wasn't a collector at the time. I was just buying cards and opening them up. I didn't really know much more about the industry. When football season came, I played fantasy football. I'm what you'd call a self-proclaimed fantasy football guru. And I enjoyed it, and I put a lot of time into fantasy football. But the next spring, Super Bowl came and went, and in the winter, and the next spring, 2021, I was ready. I had my Target Red card. I was all ready to buy these boxes online. I also had 3 or 4 family members, already when when they dropped these boxes on a Tuesday or a Wednesday morning, I was buying. I think we were able to get 5, 6, maybe 6 at a time. So I ended up, like any Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever they dropped each week, I could end up with 18 boxes, and just, waiting for them to come, opening them all up. So that July in 2021, that was the game changer for me. I received a text message from a friend I used to work with at the prison, and I also participated in his fantasy football league. And it was 5 words that really changed my hobby life. The text read, "Do you collect sports cards?" And I said, well, thought to myself, I have all these boxes of baseball cards. I've got all these junk wax hockey cards from the 90s. Of course I collect cards. I'm a collector. Why? I said, yeah, why? And then my phone immediately rang. It was my good friend Rob, who a lot of you know on Instagram as Sports Card Therapist, asking me if I would be interested to go to Nationals in Chicago with him. I didn't go to him with Nationals, but we spoke almost daily after that, as I started buying cards from other sports. He just got me so interested. I was on eBay, I was on Marketplace, buying single cards, buying some boxes of cards. Uh, I even no, he told me, don't ever get involved in the breaks. I even got involved in a break and a few online breaks. So football, I knew all the players. I knew the young draft picks. I knew, who would be popular. He was schooling me a little bit. Hey, it's, the QBs are the way to go. Everybody else is small potatoes, but you can get a nice rookie QB. That was the way to go. So the worst thing that could have happened to me happened. It was like my third or fourth break that I got involved in. It was online. And if you know football breaks, especially from this past year with all these rookie quarterbacks, I guess people can't afford it because they do buy it, but I wasn't buying in to Patriots, Jaguars, Jets, San Fran, anyone with a rookie quarterback. You couldn't touch it. I mean, all the other teams would be under $100, and these teams could go up to $400, $500, $600, especially on a good box of cards from Panini, like Panini Black or Certified. Any of the teams that had rookie QBs were out of my league. I wasn't investing that much money into that. But I was a Chiefs fan, so I started buying into the Chiefs, and I noticed that the Bucks, and I knew at the time Tom Brady cards were going for a decent amount of money. So I figured I'll take the two cheap ones. I took Chiefs and Bucks, and I was getting some cards, and I was happy about it. But then I got in trouble. I got into a Panini Black. It was a half a case break, and I had the Chiefs. In the break, I end up getting a Panini Black, Patrick Mahomes, 1 of 10, on-card auto, smoke show signatures. Redemption. At the time, I didn't realize that redemption meant there's probably no freaking way you're ever going to see that card. But in my mind, I'm like, I just ended up with like a $4,000 card. It was like going to the casino and hitting the side bet for a chunk of change, right? And I'm like, I'm the break king. Let's keep doing this, right? Let's keep jumping in and get all that. I'll do this every time. It didn't actually work out that way. I did amass a collection of cards that I was able to start selling later on, but none as good as Patrick Mahomes on card auto. There were a couple other good cards I picked up in the break, but nothing as great as that. But of course, the bug is there. I got bit by it. You go online and you set on a break, and I don't care who you are. It's just like if you like to open up boxes of wax, if you open it up and you pull an auto or a 1 of 10, or you pull something great out of there. I mean, the excitement just keeps you going back. And I understand that. It's what kept me going to the casino all the time. So, again, talk to my guy, Rob. He says, you know what? You try selling the card online as a redemption, or you can just redeem it and hope for the best. So I put it online. I put it on eBay for a while, and there was one other one that sold for $3,500 or $3,600. So I figured, hey, I'll put mine up for the same thing, and nobody bought on it. So I ended up just redeeming the card. I redeemed it, I think, in September. So it's been that long. Here we are in March, and all I do is keep every 120 days telling them, yeah, I'm still waiting. I'd still like to see that card. So fast forward to September. I go to my first show in Long Island at Hofstra. I go with Rob, meet him. We go to the first show. I bought my first show card going at a show. I bought some raw quarterback cards that I ended up. One was a Justin Herbert, a purple shock that I end up sending in for grading, and it comes back a 10. Well, now I'm the guru of buying cards at a show, so it's almost a perfect storm. A lot of good things happened to me in this in this hobby in my early days. Uh, I did make mistakes, don't get me wrong, but I'd like to highlight the good moments instead. Um, so by October, uh, Rob says to me, "Hey, you want to set up at a show?" I said, "Sure, why not?" So I got myself one of those nice display cases off of Amazon, and I set up at my first show, and I sold one card because none of my cards at that time were graded. I sold one card, and everybody that came by said, "Oh, that's nice, but I can't buy raw because I don't know how it's going to grade." So I think I put my first order in for grading was probably a week after that show. Put in, I think it was 55 cards I sent for grading, and they all came back with really like 9 or 10. I mean, most of those cards came from breaks that were like literally just pulled from the pack and sleeved up. So they were great cards to begin with, and I guess you could say the rest is history right there. As soon as I started selling at these shows, the next show we went to, and I started selling cards, I really started the business is not hard to understand. I mean, if you like people and you like to talk to people, the cards themselves will sell themselves. I mean, that's really what I found in this business. But I don't want to get too off track there. So I couldn't have asked for a better friend, for traveling, to be the partner in the hobby, really just to be a hobby mentor. And I know he wasn't in it that long either. So I think in a way he was able to mentor me and teach me of what he knew. And I think since then we've taught each other. We've learned a lot along the way. We've made a lot of great friends along the way. He coached me out of breaks, which I want to say I still get involved in every now and then, just depending on, what the box is, what the sport is, and what my odds are. I'm an odds guy. I can figure out pretty good odds if I know the box. I mean, on any of these boxes, before I ever buy into a break, I usually go to YouTube and I watch maybe like 15 or 20 of these boxes being opened to see what kind of cards, what comes out, what's the pattern. Are they crappy boxes? Are they good boxes? Or is it one out of every 8 it's got fire and the rest of them are just junk? So I kind of figure that out, and I figure my odds, and I get to know which box is pretty consistent. And I may just buy the boxes myself and open them, just buy a box and open it myself versus getting on a break. But he was able to school me a little bit on, using my money a little smarter. So instead of buying, 5 boxes of something, take that money and go buy the card that you're chasing in that box. If you can find it at a show or on eBay, and it's money better spent, because you could buy 50 boxes of something and never get the card you're chasing. So sometimes I get really lucky, and sometimes I don't. But it's definitely it was good advice. And really was giving me advice on just who to buy, what kind of cards, what cards were liquid, what would help me in this hobby, what cards are going to sell at a show if I want to trade up, what kind of cards do I need. So as I close out this first episode, I guess what I really want you to know is this is not going to be your typical sports card podcast. As you can tell right now, I'm very young in this business. There's a lot of people out there that know a lot more than I do, about this hobby. And the description itself is sports card lessons, but I'm not here to teach you about the hobby. But as a teacher, all those years, I always looked at my everyday life to find teachable moments to bring to a classroom. And anything that I felt was a teachable moment, I would figure out how to turn it into a lesson and bring it in. And especially, teaching in a prison, I'm teaching my students aren't out in the street. They're not out in the world. They're a captive audience, inside a building that never leave, no social media. I mean, all they have are TVs. So I tried to bring as many life lessons and things I've learned, I tried to bring to them. Here, I'm hoping to bring teachable hobby moments, things that I've learned mistakes that I've made. I do a lot of shows, any deals that I do at a show, things that work out for me, things that don't work out for me. I'm hoping to have some great guests on, after a few episodes. Once we get going, I've got some good guests lined up. I'm going to bring them on and let them share their hobby expertise as well. The next episode, I want to break down what I PC, what's in my cases, what's on my table at the shows, and a recap. I'm doing shows almost every weekend, at least minimum twice a month. I'm doing shows. So I just hope to bring that information, things that I learn weekly, monthly, things I learn in the hobby, and bring them to you. Each week, on a close with a life lesson, something I've learned along the way, that I'm going to connect it to the hobby. But, it's always been a life lesson. When my kids were young, because I was a teacher, anything that I felt was a teachable moment, I used to say to my kids, hey, this is a life lesson. Pay attention to this for a minute. And I think I've given them such good information that they've used in their life, and they're adults now. So today's life lesson is a real easy one. You're never too old to try something new. I picked up this hobby after I retired, and a lot of the people in the hobby are younger, and I understand that. But I do want to say, in this short time in the hobby, I've met so many great people that I talk with weekly about cards and upcoming shows. People that I set up with at shows, and people that I just meet at shows, and everyone is so welcoming. There's no age barrier in this hobby. I go to the shows. There's a lot of younger kids that I talk to really on a weekly basis, and there's really no age barrier, and that to me is just unbelievable, because usually in life, no matter where you go, there's always an age barrier. And everybody in this hobby has been welcoming. I haven't met anybody in this hobby that has been negative in any way. So that's today. I'm going to wrap this one up. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. And if you like what you hear, please tell a friend, spread the word. If you have comments, questions, or even suggestions for a show topic, or just want to reach out, hit me up on social media. If you're on YouTube, comment below. If you're on Instagram, at sportscard_lessons, or email sportscardlessons@gmail.com. Thank everyone for listening. Until next time, be good to yourselves and everyone around you.